2022. This is actually take two because yours truly, in the rush to get this particular news and views out, entirely forgot to turn on the microphones. So this is actually take two. Before that, I want to remind everybody that tomorrow there is no vid chat. That will be next week, a week from tomorrow on May 20th. So make sure you stop by the website, check the website to make sure that the vid chat's up. And remember to get your comments and questions in by Thursday night, 10 p.m. U.S. Central Time. And I also want to take time and thank all of you who have been praying, if you're not the praying sort, who've been thinking good thoughts for me. I want to thank you all for that, and I want to thank everybody again for such wonderful articles. I really think you geezers are probably some of the best article spotters on the planet. And a case in point is today, thanks to PT and a couple of other people that sent along this article as well. It's very, very important because this is the official briefing that was given just yesterday by the Russian Ministry of Defense on those Ukrainian biolabs that their military uncovered when it went into the Ukraine. And it's looking increasingly to me like one of the objectives of the so-called failed portions of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine was precisely to spearhead and seize those facilities and the documentation in them. But anyway, I'm going to be reading several paragraphs from this briefing. I want everybody to listen, but more importantly, I want you to go and read this briefing and look at the slides for yourselves. Try and save them, spread them around. Again, I caution everybody, this is the Russian side of the story, and of course, I'm doing it because we're not getting their side of the story in the Western media, probably any more than the Russians are getting the other side of the story. But this one is very pointed. It is to the point. They don't mince words. And I'm going to be reading it with very minimal commentary, almost entirely in order, skipping a very few paragraphs except towards the very end. The title of the briefing is Briefing on the Results of the Analysis of Documents Related to the Military Biological Activities of the United States on the Territory of the Ukraine. And again, folks, I am going to be using the definite article for the Ukraine, even though they don't. It's proper English. It's not simply Netherlands or United Kingdom or United States. It's the United States, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and the Ukraine. So here we go. Quote, the Russian Ministry of Defense continues to study materials on the implementation of military biological programs of the United States and its NATO allies on the territory of the Ukraine. We have already mentioned Robert Pope, the director of the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program and author of the idea of the Central Depository of Highly Dangerous Microorganisms in Kiev. In his statement of April 10, 2022, Pope said that, quote, there is no reason to claim that research related to the development of biological weapons is taking place in the Ukraine, unquote. He previously claimed that, quote, the Americans did not find biological weapons when they first started working with the Ukraine, and they still haven't. In addition, the Ukraine lacks the infrastructure to develop and produce biological weapons, unquote. Continuing with the Russian Defense Ministry, I would like to recall that the term biological weapons includes biological formulations that contain pathogenic microorganisms and toxins, as well as the means of delivery and use of said formulations. Now I'm skipping one paragraph here, folks. As a result of the special military operation on the territory of the Ukraine, facts of work with the specified pathogens, which are potential agents of biological weapons, have been revealed. At the same time, it was noted that the Ukraine had sent a request to the manufacturing company regarding the possibility of equipping the Bayraktar drones with aerosol equipment. In addition, on March 9th, 3 unmanned aerial vehicles equipped with 30-liter containers and equipment for spraying formulations were detected by Russian reconnaissance units in the Kherson region. At the end of April, 10 more were found near Kakhovka. All this information calls into question the statements of American experts. We have previously provided a scheme for U.S. coordination of biological laboratories and research institutes in the Ukraine. Its preliminary analysis suggests, listen carefully folks, suggests that the Ukraine is essentially a testing ground for the development of biological weapons components and the testing of new samples of pharmaceuticals. It should be noted that the Russian Ministry of Defense was able to clarify the said scheme. It should be noted that the ideologues of U.S. military biological activities in the Ukraine are the leaders of the Democratic Party. Now, folks, it doesn't get more heavy-hitting or blatant than this. Quote, thus, through the U.S. executive branch, a legislative framework for funding military biomedical research directly from the federal government was formed. Funds were raised under state guarantees from NGOs, or non-governmental organizations, controlled by the Democratic Party leadership, including the investment funds of the Clintons, Rockefellers, Soros, and Biden. The scheme involves major pharmaceutical companies including Pfizer, Moderna, Merck, and the U.S. military-affiliated company Gilead. U.S. experts are working to test new medicines that circumvent international safety standards. As a result, Western companies are seriously reducing the cost of research programs and gaining a significant competitive advantage. Skipping 2 paragraphs. Thus, the U.S. Department of Defense, using a virtually internationally uncontrolled test site and the high-tech facilities of multinational companies, has greatly expanded its research capabilities not only in the field of biological weapons, but also in gaining knowledge about antibiotic resistance and the antibodies to specific diseases in populations with specific reasons. It should be noted that not only the U.S., but also a number of its NATO allies are implementing their military biological projects in the Ukraine. The German government has decided to launch a national biosafety program independent of Washington, D.C., starting in 2013. 12 countries, including the Ukraine, are involved in the program. On the German side, the program involves the Institute for Armed Forces Biology in Munich, the Robert Koch Institute in Berlin, the Loeffler Institute in Greifswald, and the Nocht Institute for Tropical Medicine in Hamburg. Skipping a paragraph. The involvement of institutions subordinate to the Bundeswehr, that's the German military, folks, confirms the military orientation of biological research carried out in the Ukrainian laboratories and raises questions about the goals pursued by the German armed forces in collecting biomaterials of Ukrainian citizens. The documents obtained also show the involvement of Poland in Ukrainian biolaboratories. The participation of the Polish Institute of Veterinary Medicine in research aimed at assessing the epidemiological threats and spread of the rabies virus in the Ukraine has been confirmed. Characteristically, the research in question was carried out jointly with the U.S.-based Battelle Institute, a key contractor of the Pentagon. Skipping a paragraph. The special military operation by Russian troops succeeded in obtaining additional information about bioincidents in the Ukraine. For example, materials indicating the intentional use of a multi-drug resistant tuberculosis pathogen in 2020 to infect the population of the Slaviano-Serbsky district of the LPR were examined. The flyers, made in the form of counterfeit currency notes, were infected with the tuberculosis agent and distributed to minors in Stepovaya village. The organizers of this crime took into account the behavior of children who have a habit of putting everything in their mouths and taking food with unwashed hands. Skipping a paragraph, folks. According to the conclusion of the Lugansk Republican Sanitary and Epidemiological Station, quote, the contamination of the notes was most likely carried out artificially, as the material contains extremely dangerous strains of the pathogen in concentrations capable of ensuring infection and the development of the tuberculosis process, unquote. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but if even half of this is true, I'm nauseated. And it's very interesting that the Russians are pointing the finger clearly at the network of pharmaceutical big corporate power and the current administration in the United States. Now, I'm skipping several paragraphs towards the very end here because I want you to listen to this final statement very carefully. The Russian Ministry of Defense has information that provocations are being prepared to accuse the Russian armed forces of using weapons of mass destruction, followed by a Syrian scenario investigation to fabricate the necessary evidence and assign blame. The high likelihood of such provocations is confirmed by requests from the Kiev administration for personal skin and respiratory protection equipment that provides protection against toxic chemicals and biological contaminating agents. The supply to the Ukraine of organophosphorus poisoning antidotes raises concerns. In 2022 alone, more than 220,000 ampules of atropine, as well as preparations for special treatment and disinfection, were delivered from the USA at the request of the Ukrainian Ministry of Health, unquote. So in other words, folks, both sides now, the West and the Russians, are claiming that the other side is preparing false flags. The West has been saying that the Russians are going to use cyber attacks, and now Russia is saying that the West is going to use biowarfare and so on. And the West has also indicated that the Russians are perhaps or probably going to use tactical nukes at some point in the Ukraine. So both sides are now preparing the narrative for a false flag. But this information, folks, please read the actual article. Look at those slides. If even a portion of this information is true, then it's damning, folks. There's no two ways about it. So that's it for today's news and views, folks. Please pray, or if you're not the praying sort, think good thoughts for the end of this war and for an end to the bloodshed and for some genuine peace over there and for some serious and wise and virtuous leadership in the West. That's it for today's news and views, folks. I'll see you on the flip side. Don't forget, no vid chat tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow we do have our next scheduled vid chat. I want to remind everybody that as soon as my heart rehab is over, which will be in a few weeks yet, then I might return to the full blog schedule of 5 blogs a week. We'll have to see how things go. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye, and God bless.